Hey, welcome to the Front Door Church podcast. My name is Dave Shrine. This is my co-host, Justin Trapp. And for the next 3 hours, we are leading you into the wild world of church communication. I'm just joking. We're not going to be here for 3 hours.
I was like, 3 hours? I thought we were going for 30 minutes.
Okay, we'll aim for 30 minutes. All right,
Okay.
Let me just adjust the show notes here a little bit. There's a lot that we could say, though. And
Yes.
as a matter of fact, that's why we decided to do a podcast, was because there's a lot to say on church communication. Can we just get it out of the way? That
We have opinions.
we have opinions, and one of my opinions is that we should say marketing.
Yeah, it's easier, right?
It's a lot easier. It's what marketing is, just the right thing to the right person at the right time for the right reasons.
Yeah. But in the church world, we call it communications.
There's a lot of baggage with marketing.
Yes. Marketing's not a bad word, guys.
It's
and
not.
gals.
It's not. And when you do it the right way, and you have the right mentality, and you put your message
You have
in
the
front
right
of them,
mission, which we think that you do.
that's right. It all comes together to form one giant. I don't know what I was going to say with that there. It's just the land of milk and honey for church communication.
Yeah.
It's when marketing all comes together. The thing is there is a lot to say. And if you are a pastor or ministry leader who's been frustrated with your inability to grow beyond, as a matter of fact, we did a survey asking pastors, how many visitors do you average? And we said family units per month.
Mhm.
The response back, 67% was 1 to 10 visitors per month. Is
It's
what
like,
they said.
2.5 per week or less?
Yeah. And so if you're frustrated with your inability to get past that dozen mark, to get past 12 visitors per month, you're not alone. It's a really frustrating thing. And one of the insights that I've walked away with as we've prepared for this podcast is so much of what we do in the church is planned, it's prepared, it's designed. Our weekend services are planned, prepared, and designed for the most part. Our worship sets, planned, prepared, designed. Wednesday night ministry, midweek ministry, planned, prepared, designed. But when it comes to our visitors, when it comes to our outreach, and even assimilating people into the church and moving them through the pathway of discipleship, a lot of that is almost incidental or accidental. It's not something that we've prepared or designed. And that's what we want to try to alleviate in this podcast. We want to explore how you can use all of the tools already at your disposal without adding tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in human resourcing costs, where you can leverage your email, you can leverage your website, your social media, make subtle tweaks, and 2x, 3x the number of visitors you have every month. It's not about the numbers. We all know that. But it's the idea that the message is too important and the stakes are way too high to just kind of be flippantly going through this, throwing stuff up on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Let me ask you this, Dave. Why? I guess the big question is, why are churches not growing? I mean, there's several, probably a myriad of answers there, but one of the big reasons why I believe that they're not is because the website, your digital front door, the front door to your church, and how people interact with you in a digital form is your website. Their front door is not operating, or it's not working the way that it should. Dave, you bring up some good points, and I think churches out there. I think the big question is why. Why aren't churches growing? Now, we could go into a lot there. That question could probably have.
Let's go into an entire season.
Yeah, that's an entire season of episodes here. But I think one of the reasons why perhaps your church is not growing the way that you would hope, you're not gaining momentum, adding more people, adding more families, is because your digital front door, which is your website, is not working the way it should. And we're going to explore how you can make some tweaks, some small changes that can really make a big difference for how you reach and connect with people online.
So I've been in ministry. I started off as a high capacity volunteer when I graduated high school. And yes, I did coin that term, high capacity volunteer.
That's a resume item right there.
That's right. And so you can use that too if you want. You already know who your high capacity volunteers are. And when the opportunity came to be an intern, I jumped at that opportunity. I was like, yes, I'm on board. And so I started doing music. Eventually, the church that I was at, they created a position for me to where I could be the music pastor, the worship pastor for the college group. But they also asked me, because I was young, I had a soul patch, I guess I looked hip. We want you to go ahead.
The paintbrush.
And we want you to help us with our website. And so that's where I got my start. And as I transitioned from doing music to doing marketing, communications, I realized that there is so much power and influence in the music, but even more so in the marketing, even more so in the messaging and the communication and the way we articulate our mission. And so a lot of what we're going to discuss, not only in this first episode where we're going to talk about your website and how to transform it into a machine that brings in visitors, a lot of it is informed by this idea that, wow, your messaging is going to make a huge difference. And if you really, really want to grow your discipleship, grow your small groups, increase baptisms, develop larger budgets, increase your budget, and welcome more people into your front door, it's going to take the right messaging. It's going to take the right strategy. And you have experience in the ministry as well.
Yeah. So I was a bivocational pastor for many years. I've done full-time vocational ministry. I was a medium to high capacity volunteer.
You'll get there.
But then I was also a bivocational pastor. I would say for the most part of my my ministry and career, so to speak, professional life. And I always had one foot in the church and one foot in marketing. I love marketing. I love communications. I love big picture strategy. And so I would, consult and coach businesses, medium, large, some small businesses. I would coach churches, large churches. If we had there's this phrase, fractional CMO, church chief marketing officer. I was sort of like a fractional CMO for a lot of these organizations, nonprofits, and I loved it, right? And so I've had this one foot in the church, one foot in the business world, marketing world, and so my perspective comes from that sort of ambidextrous endeavor, so to speak. And I believe that a lot of things that we have learned in the business world and the marketing world can be applied to the church in a way that's faithful, that it's meaningful, and that's effective.
Years ago, I hosted the Church Marketing Podcast, and I came out with that podcast. I wanted to do that because what you just said there, that the business world has some things to offer that the church world can capitalize on. I didn't see anybody making that translation. I didn't see anybody going from, okay, here's how businesses are using their website, emails, copywriting, ads, whatever the case might be, and applying that to the church. Nobody else was doing that. And I said, man, we should learn from all these lessons. And so this is a further development of that entire concept of we're going to help take everything that we see happening that just flat out works and help you apply that to your church as we look to apply it to our own. I don't know about you, but my pastor looks to me sometimes, hey, what do you think about this? What should we be doing here? And it makes me feel really good, number one, that he wants to know what my thoughts are, but it also is very gratifying and rewarding knowing that, hey, just these little subtle changes that you make can have a huge difference on your impact. So I think where we should start, we've already been talking about, but where we should really start to get practical here is, what is the purpose of the church website? You asked the question, what should it do? Who should it be for? So let's talk about that. What is the purpose of the website, or what should the purpose of the website be?
Well, I think naturally the purpose of your website should be to inform visitors. That some people are looking for information. There's no doubt. Information on your website is not bad. It can be actually very helpful. What is the story of the church? Who are the staff members? What is the mission? What is the culture? Those things are all important. I think the tension comes in is when a church website is just information, and that's it. Just information with service times and a map and a contact form, and that's it. You want to be able to move people from information to relationship digitally without them having to come and experience that by attending a service. So to me, that's one thing that stands out is it can't be just information. It's got to be a place for members and non-members. But I would say your members are probably not visiting your website as much as you think that they are. In fact, we just did a little research at my church, and we found that if you take the average number of people that attend our services every week versus the average number of unique visitors to our church website every month, the church website visitors is 3.5 times more than the average attendance. So there is a sea of people that are not attending our church, but are visiting our website every single month. And that really is a great opportunity for your church, for my church, to reach out to those people and ask the question, what is our website? What should it be doing? What should we have on our website? Should we make some changes that can really connect with these people that obviously are curious, obviously are really interested and want to learn more, but they're probably not ready to plan a visit just yet?
We use our website for a lot of different things. Some of those you just brought up. A few other items that I have written down. We use our website to promote our weekly events. Obviously, we use our website to promote our service times, our location. We make the sermon archives available. We promote the streaming version of the service. We use event registration. There's all these different things that we use our website for, but to pair up with what you're talking about, most of it is informational based. It's not relationship based. And so when we look at who do we say our website's for, and I'm just going to say it, your homepage, your website in general, but most specifically your homepage needs to be geared towards visitors. Now, this is not a seeker sensitive, Bible-based teaching, hard doctrine like paradigm where you can only be one or the other. That's not what we're talking about here.
It's a visitor sensitive website.
Yeah, right. So the idea is, look, people coming to your website is Justin, you just used that example of 3 times more coming to the website than actually attending the service. What I want you to think about when you hear that is it's not the equivalent of people driving by your church, 3,000 people, every week driving by your church. It's not that equivalent. It's the equivalent of people driving by your church, pulling into the parking lot, pulling kind of the window down, looking out and trying to see what your hours are, trying to see what's going on inside. Is there activity? And so one of the things that we use our website for is to show people that there's activity going on. And that's one of the big barriers, I think, to actually engaging with people who do come by the website. And so as a result of everything that we've just talked about, I want to emphasize what you've said, that church websites are broken. What we're doing is we're asking them to come and provide all this information about themselves, like to plan a visit, but we're offering nothing in return.
Yeah, I think Plan Your Visit has been a noble attempt. We've seen a lot of churches adopt this Plan Your Visit. And if you don't know what Plan Your Visit is, it's a mechanism or a widget that you can install on your site. Some CMS providers have it already built in. So they call it Next Steps. And I think what's important to know that we're assuming, right, if you only have Plan Your Visit and that's it, to move someone from a first-time viewer on your site to coming to a service, you're assuming that everyone is ready to come to a service, and
which is a big assumption.
It is a big assumption. There's probably most people are not ready to come. I mean, we just talked about my church website stats. There's a lot of people that are coming to the site, unique visitors that are not attending. So I think what you've got to do is you've got to connect with them in a way that's personable and that's real outside of like, hey, come visit a service. And there's a few ways that you can do this. Now, you brought up the driving by the church, pulling into the parking lot. And I think what's interesting, so like, let's say, for instance, you look at your Google Analytics. If you say, hey, we're having 400 people visit our church website every single month. Well, that's quantitative data. And you brought it up. It's like watching people drive by the church. Right. Maybe they're pulling into the parking lot and you're counting those cars and they're looking around, but you don't know anything about them. And you don't know their marital status. You don't know how many kids they have. Do they even have kids? Are they divorced? Are they empty nesters? What's their financial status? What's their faith background? Did they grow up in church? Did they not grow up? You don't know anything. You just see them coming by into the parking lot, driving around in circles for a few moments and then leaving, right? What you can do, and this is causing us to rethink how we view our website. What is our website for beyond publishing the sermon every week and having our service times? You can create opportunities to connect with people. And so what you can do, you can begin to offer different resources based on felt need, based on where people are at, based on interest. And when people say, hey, I would like that resource, that's free. For instance, let's say you have a kids resource and it's on your children's ministry page, which I think is a great place to put it. It's a free resource that's 5 things your kids need to hear every day, or 5 Bible stories to share with your kids. If someone downloads this, and they have to give you their email address to download this, you know something now. Not only are they driving in circles in your parking lot, you know they have children, and you know that they care about sharing the gospel with their children. So now you can set up emails, automated emails even, right? Automation trumps determination. And you can send them emails under the context of this particular engagement. Hey, you know the parents, you know they want to share the gospel with their kids. So now you can send them emails that highlight the children's ministry, maybe make an introduction to the children's pastor, or do a profile on the children's pastor, share her story or his story, how long they've been at the church. You could highlight the check-in process. You can do a lot of things in 4 or 5 emails over, not every day, but once every few days, and you can build a lot of trust before they've ever come to your service. They're going to feel like they know what to expect. They know, in a way, they know more about the children's pastor than they ever did just driving through the parking lot. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot can happen. And now when they do attend a service, they're really prepared for the experience. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And I mentioned kids ministry, or a kids ministry resource. You can do it with all kinds of things. I mean, we here at Ministry Pass, we created a resource. Was it April or May 2020?
Yeah, it was about April.
And it was a resource for pastors, and we're running Facebook ads to it. So the algorithm isn't perfect, but it was a resource that was like 40 scriptures to preach on dealing with anxiety and stress. Now, this is April 2020. This is at the height of the pandemic, fear and anxiety and stress. And our numbers of downloads were just through the roof. And I started getting responses to some of our emails, our automated emails. And it was like, hey, I'm not a pastor. I don't want to sign up for a Ministry Pass. I just needed the scriptures. And what we found is there was lots of people that, our world was filled with anxiety and stress, and they were looking for something. And they saw our ad on Facebook, and they wanted to find comfort. They wanted to find hope. And they began to download this, and it was non-pastors, but they just needed the scripture. And so, say for example, it's April 2020. Your church could post on your homepage, hey, here's a free resource, 40 passages to help you deal with anxiety and stress. Now, all those follow-up emails that you have with them are under the context of that initial relationship. You have their email address. You can follow up with them. You can say, hey, you can even send them tips. What a favorite tip of mine is to write some of these passages on sticky notes and put them throughout the house. It's really encouraged me, provided comfort throughout the day. You haven't asked them to attend a service, but you've added value to them. You've helped them. Could you say you've discipled them digitally?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing that I want to identify from what you're saying here is the overall paradigm shift that we're making is from me-centric to them focus, is to relationship,
or service-centric to relationship.
Right. And the reason why that's so important is we lead so often with me, us, my church, our service time. What you're saying is you're saying me, instead of relationship, instead of you, instead of meeting them where they're at. And actually the way this shows up right now, currently on the majority of church websites that I see is the rotating banner ad. I know that has been the bane of existence for so many people. And I'll tell you real quick, I was trying to get rid of that rotating banner for a church. This was several years ago. They've since gotten rid of it. But as we looked,
PTL.
That's right. As we looked through the actual data, what I told them was less than 1% of all visits to your website are engaging with this rotating banner. Meaning for every 1,000 visits that came through, 10 people were actually engaging with the banner. Less than 10. Yeah, less than 1%. But the idea was, when I brought that out, the idea that they had in pushback is, but how are we going to let people know what's going on? How are we going to show them what's happening.
I used to build church websites. I used to build church websites all the time. And I can't tell you how many pastors would ask me, hey, the church that's 200 people larger than this down the street, they got the rotating banner. And I just want people to know that stuff is happening. We just want to show that things are going on here.
There are better ways to show people what's happening and that things are going on by actually connecting them to the things that are happening in your church most relevant to them. And that's essentially what you're getting at here is before you just start bombarding them with everything, try to find out what is the one thing that they're most interested in and then lean into that. And so what we need to do, I've already said it, but we need to transform our church websites to being visitor focused. And so what do we need to put onto our homepage specifically? They are looking for very simple things. They're looking for the vibe. They're looking for times. They're looking for location closest to me or location most convenient for me. And parents are looking for information for kids. That's pretty much all they're looking for at that point. So you're saying, but how are we going to let them know that men's ministry is going on? Well, you know what? They don't care that men's ministry is going on right now. They've got other things going on. How are we going to let them know about the prayer group that we have coming up on Tuesday? What are the odds of somebody showing up to your website and actually showing up to a prayer group as their first act of being involved with your church?
Here's what you do. You offer a resource about prayer, a devotional series about prayer. You put it somewhere on your site. Everybody that downloads that, they get the email, right? The promotion email about the prayer group on Tuesday nights. Naturally, right? It makes sense. But you don't have to, the what do they call that? The above the fold?
Yeah. The hero section.
The hero section of your website. The top part of your section is the most valuable real estate. And you want to make sure that you leverage that appropriately. And yes, men's breakfast is amazing. We all love bacon, but it shouldn't take up your entire hero area. In fact, I wouldn't even put it there because you want to prioritize the 3.5 times more people that are visiting your website than actually attending. Now, that's not to say that there shouldn't be a place for your members to find information. We believe that's good and helpful, but you want to prioritize the guest experience first.
So what we're doing with the schedule your visit, it's actually in the right direction of how we should be approaching engaging with our visitors, but it's a little bit
It's like the fifth step, not the first step.
It should be the fifth step, not the first step. And you'll talk about the angle scale of conversion in a second. But what I want you to start thinking about with your homepage and your visitor strategy is creating a brand new front door. We've always thought as the first point of contact as having been when somebody steps onto our campus. Then over the course of the years, we were like, well, everyone says we need to get a website. So finally, now we've agreed and we've conceded we have to have a website. But as Justin's about to tell you with this angle scale of conversion, we do a really good job once people have walked through our front door, but there's a gap. There's something missing.
Yeah, so he's a psychologist. I think it was in the early 80s. He came out, I think his name is Robert Engel. I know it's Engel, but Dr. Engel, I should say, came out with a scale of conversion. And his theory was churches are really good at measuring progress upon salvation. So someone makes a profession of faith to Christ. That's ground zero. And then let's say they start attending church regularly. That's the next step. That's 1. And then they start volunteering. That's 2. They join a small group. That's 3. They get baptized. I guess that would be step 2, right? Step 2. Ultimately to 5 which is giving, right? They're tithing. There's active discipleship happening. What he was saying is that we're actually really bad at measuring the growth pre-conversion. And there is a transition. There's a path that happens pre-conversion, pre-salvation for people. And we don't really acknowledge that as much as we should. And so his scale was like -12. And at -12, someone has no awareness of any supreme being on earth. And it moves to like -11, which is, there's an awareness of a higher power at some point. I'm not sure if it's Zen or a God or multiple gods, but ultimately, the way that the sweat hits your eyebrows and then moves around so it doesn't get in your eyes, like there's some intelligent creation design there, just not certain, right? All the way up to they have a a profession of a desire, like a dependence upon, needing a savior. And that's like -1 and then ultimately ground zero. So I said all that to say, the same is true for your website visitors. Not everyone is ready to plan your visit. I would consider that, right? Like a ground zero type thing. They're ready to attend.
Planning your visit is essential because they're going to be giving you their name. They're going to be giving you their phone number.
Information.
They're going to be giving you their email address, kids' names, mother's maiden name, annual income.
Just ask for less information, please, folks.
Ask for less information. But you're going to be asking for a lot at the point of plan your visit. And some folks just aren't ready to do that, just like most folks don't get married on the first date.
No. And so you can't assume everyone's ready to attend. We've said that. So you have to assume that people are all over this scale, this spectrum, right, of where they're ready to attend or not. And so you have to progress them through. And one of the ways that you can do this is based on felt needs or interests. You could do a grief resource. It's someone who just lost a loved one, or a divorce recovery. And let's say it's a single mom. She recently got a divorce. She's struggling. She comes to your website. She's not really ready to plan your visit. She's in a fragile season of life. And the thought of turning her baby over to strangers that she doesn't know is just a little odd, but she knows that she needs help, and she doesn't even know what she needs. She just knows that she's kind of searching and exploring and trying to find some sort of spiritual stabilization in her life. And if you offer her a resource, a guide, a video series, perhaps a devotional series,
a collection of encouraging verses with a little bit of context.
Yes. Now you've added value to her. You've not just, we get commenters all the time. They just say, "Oh, just preach the gospel," and that has this
the Lord will give us a word.
Yeah, that just has this trickle down effect. We just want to highlight our services or highlight the sermon. And what about be the gospel to that single mother in a digital way? I think you can do that. I think you can add value, you can disciple in a way digitally, and then build a relationship, build trust. You can send some follow-up emails based on the contextualization of that initial connection. And I think once you have that in place, you are going to have far more first-time visitors, first-time guests, but also when they show up, there's a difference there than just a cold interaction. Like they just showed up to your service and they don't know what to expect. They don't know who the pastor is. This way, there is some expectation. They know the story of the church. You could send a few emails saying, "Hey, my wife and I, we actually came from, broken families, and when we wanted to start the church, we want to make sure that we wanted to reach out to everyone, whether you were married or not, or you came from a broken home, or you were recently divorced." And that's one of the reasons why we started our church, is because we wanted to reach out to all these types of people. And maybe your story's like ours. You share the story of how the church was founded and maybe the early struggles of the church. When they show up, they're going to feel like they know you, and you don't even know them. You don't even know their face, but they know you. And there's something powerful about that. Yeah.
I'm getting this picture. We plan our episodes, and I didn't talk about this, but I'm getting this picture in my head. We often see the front door of the church is when somebody walks in, they come in through this little narrow front door, but then all of a sudden it opens up the whole world of the ministry opportunities and ministry possibilities that exist within the realm of the church. And that's what Engel was talking about. Once somebody comes in and converts, this whole world opens up, and we're great at that. But the opposite is what we need to be focusing on, and realize it's going to be very, very difficult to get someone to squeeze through that front door. And so what we need to do is not try and widen necessarily that front door at the building, but we need to actually move the front door out further, and we need to open it more up like a stadium front door as opposed to the front doors of the church. And the way we do this is by taking all of the programs and the things that we do so well, and we just say, "Look, you don't have to come to our church to get this. You don't have to wait until you walk through our front door to get this. We're actually going to bring our front door to you, and we're going to deliver baptism resources, questions about answering how to deal with anxiety, about how to parent your kids, we're going to take parents in our churches who are great at homeschooling, and we're going to create homeschooling resources that we're going to now put out, we're talking about Facebook ads in our next episode, that we're going to create an ad campaign and share it with the zip codes around us saying, hey, if you are considering homeschooling, here's what you need to think about. And so all of this creates a really big problem. When we talk about making this visitor focused, it creates a really big problem for most ministry leaders. It comes back to that, well, how are we going to make sure people know what's going on? And so you mentioned it a little bit earlier, this concept of a designated place for members. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, so, I think it's important for your current members to have that designated place, to know, like, if they don't know the answer, to know where to find the answer on your website, whether that be a drop down. Maybe you have a tab at the top right of your site that says members, and it's a drop down and it has all the stuff there. And you could even mention that from the stage. Hey, if you regularly attend here, you could be during the announcements time. Hey, if you want more information about any of these events, we have a members tab on our site. Click that and you'll find what you need. I think that's a really easy way to communicate where your current members can find the stuff that they need. However, and you always want to promote the giving too, right? Can't forget about the giving. But your site should be designated, really focused for the guests, because there's a lot more people that are coming to your site that are actually attending your services. And we know that you want them to attend your service, but you got to remember that people are coming from all walks of life. They're in all seasons of life in different places, and you can connect with them in ways that are spiritual and meaningful based on interest or hobbies or their felt needs. And like you said, opening that door.
Yeah.
Not everyone, right now, most churches just have plan your visit, and you're sort of forcing everybody through the plan your visit. And if you're not ready to plan your visit, we're not ready to connect with you.
I've never thought about it that way.
And so I think what we're suggesting, and we're saying, we're actually almost demanding of churches, like, hey, you've got to think about it differently, and you can leverage some of these felt needs and where people are at to really meet them halfway. And so what I love about what we've done at Front Door is we've created a lot of these resources. I've talked to a lot of pastors. I've been on this soapbox for a few years, and I've had pastors say, hey, man, I agree with what you're saying. I hadn't thought about it that way. Not that you're so smart, but it makes sense.
You are smart, but I like you.
But like, what do I do now? Now I've got to create. How do I even set up an automation for our emails? Or where would I even begin? Do you know any writers that can help us write some of these resources? Because we don't have any of that stuff. So what we did with Front Door, it's frontdoor.church, is we created a library of these resources. They're not they're white labeled, so they don't have our logo. You can put your logo. We don't care. I hope that you put your logo on the resources and you offer them on your site. We have children's resources for you to put on your children's ministry page. We have the grief resource. We have the scripture resources, lots of scripture resources, and you can offer those. And then Front Door is a 3-step platform. You choose the resource. Again, put your logo on it, or you don't have to. It can be unbranded. Second is you choose the landing page template. So once they click on that from your site, it takes them to a page where it says, hey, give us your email address. Here's more about the resource. And then the third step is the email automation. We actually have that built in. We have a template, 3 templates, email templates for every single resource. Now, you can tweak those. We hope that you do, but you don't have to. It actually auto-populates your church name in some of the resources too, as well as the pastor's name. So that's really cool. But also you can add your own emails, and we hope that you do. We hope that you add to that sequence, and it's really easy to do. So you can literally set up a Front Door campaign in less than 10 minutes, and you can either use it for Facebook ads, or you can just have it on your home page on your website, or on the children's ministry page, or whatever page on your site. And as people visit your church, there's this little gift for this visitor. And it's like, oh, maybe they don't need the grief resource, but maybe they hop over on this page and it's a resource with 40 scriptures about stress and anxiety. And man, life has been stressful. And so they really want that. So you can meet them where they're at. And I think if you have these in place, if you begin to shift your thinking on what your website should be designed for, you're going to start reaching more people, which is going to bring in more people, which is going to really reach more people with the gospel, baptize more people, more givers. Like your church is going to see a lot of momentum from this, and you're going to continue to grow more than you already are.
As we get ready to wrap up this first episode, it's really important that you know what we are calling you to here is actually beyond just changing the way that you're thinking about your website. It's changing the way you think about engaging with people who are in your church and people who are not yet in your church. And so you're thinking probably, okay, if we're going to make the homepage visitor focused, great. All right. If we're going to put all of our member resources in a hamburger menu up at the top right-hand corner, or I like to put it in the footer menu all the way down at the bottom of the page, okay, that's fine. I can get on board with that. But how am I going to put stuff in front of people? Well, number one, I'm just going to flat out say people are not coming to your website. Even people in your church are not coming to your website as much as you think they are. And I know that because when I was on a church staff, I was on the website multiple times a day. However, being in the church now and just attending, the only time I visit the church website now is when they either tell me that I can go to the website to register for an event right there in the service, or they put a QR code up on the screen and I take a picture of it.
I go to my church website when I need to update a payment info, twice or once every 2 years.
You are putting the need to know information out there in areas where people are not going to gain it. So this is really not sacrificing anything and gaining a whole lot. Here's the key. The reason you can say your website isn't the best communication place is because there's a tool that's even better. And we're already starting to hit on it, and we'll hit on it more in the upcoming episodes. And that is your church newsletter. Your emails that you send out will be the primary means of connecting with people. And what's even better is you can send out more emails. The more you know about the people coming to your website and in your church, the more emails you can send out. I'm not going to go into that right now because we got to wrap up this episode. But if you hang around, episode 3 is going to be all about email, church newsletters, and you're really going to appreciate all of the information and the opportunities that it opens up. Justin, I'm excited that we get an opportunity to talk about a completely new way of communicating with the church. And really, like I said earlier, really saying, okay, we're not going to wait for people to walk through our front door. We're going to push it out. We're going to open it up wide. And when they get to the church, that's the 4th or the 5th interaction that they've had with us. It's not the first. Thank you so much for listening to this first episode. We know you could be listening to a lot of different podcasts, and the fact that you're here with us and you made it to the end, it really does speak to our hearts. And so we're very grateful that you spent the time with us. Head on over to frontdoor.church. If you have any comments or questions, you can contact us through there, send them over, explore the resources that are there. You get a better understanding of what it is we're talking about. And finally, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, leave a rating or review on this first episode. Let us know how we're doing and how we can make it better. And then subscribe wherever you're listening. We're going to talk about Facebook ads. We're going to talk about email marketing, online giving, bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So we're really excited. Again, we're challenging everyone to think about how we communicate and how we reach people in a digital world. Think about it a little bit differently. Not massive changes, but some subtle things, some little tweaks that can make a big difference and help you reach more people with the gospel. We're in this together. Thanks so much for listening to episode 1. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.